With the anime episode of Emu's transformation upon us, I just wanted to point something out that was told to me a year ago. So, nearly a year ago, almost to the day, I had a conversation with one of my Discord moderators named Minnie. You've had him on the Roll Skull podcast before. But he pointed out something very interesting to me that happens in Skypiea. During the Jaya section, in which we are introduced to Calgra, Mose, and Mont Blanc Nolan, we see the sacrifice of Calgra's daughter, Mose, take place, but is thwarted by Mont Blanc Nolan. The actual sacrifice doesn't mean too much right now. What's interesting is the waterway that the bearded serpent travels down. You see, we've seen this shape before. We've seen a long path that ends in a circular basin. This shape looks a lot like Emu's throne. Additionally, it's very interesting that the bearded serpent is slain by a sword wielded by Mont Blanc Nolan. Mont Blanc Nolan is seen as a liar, as you know. So, isn't it funny that around the supposedly empty throne, we have the swords of the 20 kingdoms that came together to form the world government? However, much like Nolan being a liar, the idea of the empty throne, meaning no one will sit at the top of the world, is in itself a lie, because a member of the 20 kingdoms is sitting atop the world as king. So while the snake was slain by someone who was called a liar in the Skypiea flashback showing Jaya, we have potentially the snake being the lie sitting atop the throne. So what I'm getting to is that I think Emu has a mythical version of what the bearded snake is in Jaya and then in Skypiea. Because you see, the interesting thing about zoan fruits moving forward is that it's been hinted slightly throughout the franchise that there are two different variations of animals, right? So you can have a normal animal zoan, but that same animal can have a mythical counterpart. The big example that I always like to come to is the two variants of the tanuki fruit. We have a canonical tanuki fruit that we see in Wano, which was eaten by a teapot, and that's to represent the naturally occurring animal in the raccoon dog. But then we have a mythical variant of that same animal in a video game in which it's eaten by a pin. So I have to say, while there could be a snake fruit model bearded snake somewhere out in the world to reflect the snakes that we see on Jaya and in Skypiea, there's also most likely a deity version of said snake that the people of Jaya saw the snake as. In their minds, however they saw the snake is what's come together to make this devil fruit that most likely is in Nerona Emu's possession. And seeing as how we have this whole theme of sacrifice in order to curry favor with said deity, I'm going to step out on a limb here and say Emu has some powers relative to that concept, because maybe, just maybe, by what we see in chapter 1125, the five elders need to curry favor with Emu to get additional powers. In this case, perhaps those powers are longevity, basically immortality at that, teleportation and access to teleportation, which is why Saturn is able to travel via Magic Circle and summon others via Magic Circle. On top of that, perhaps it gives people the ability to communicate telepathically, because we see a lot of that between the five elders on Egghead, and we see a lot of that between Saturn himself and Emu as Saturn is being killed by Emu. So, yes, in Emu having this ability, perhaps there's some sort of worship mechanic associated with their ability, and that allows them to give others different abilities, but it also allows them to take their lives away because they are now linked to Emu themselves. Another interesting thing, and I don't know how much I want to read into this, but I think in Mose being sacrificed to the bearded snake in Jaya, that's going to be a play on the true identity of Emu. I'm not sure what the story behind Emu is, but all I know is that no matter how it has happened, they have the body of a woman. So I think Emu is biologically female, to play on the whole bit about how Mose was being sacrificed to a bearded snake. Now a woman has the ability to become a bearded snake. But with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Woods.